when life is here. Cormac is in Kennington. Cormac has contributed frequently to LBC phone-ins, both as a caller and indeed as an invited guest on other programmes, a former strategic communications advisor to the former Foreign Affairs Minister of Ukraine, Pavlo Klimkin. Let's take it from the top, Cormac. This is ugly, right?
James, good morning, and thanks very much for having me on.
You're welcome.
It's horribly ugly, and it brings back... I mean, I reached the zenith of my rage and disgust with that Oval Office meeting that you referred to earlier.
Yes.
I was actually on holidays in Spain, and I was called by another station, Times Radio, and I did an interview saying how it was a setup and so forth.
Well, what a shame! What a shame! No one would have heard it, Cormac. Very briefly, how significant was that moment? I mean, looking back now, I mean, you clearly.
I think looking back now, James, it was hugely significant. You know, I went on, and I won't name it, yet another station, not LBC, about a year and a half ago, and I said Trump was in Putin's pocket, and I was challenged.
Yeah.
I was challenged by the interviewer, and I was also challenged by Greg Swenson, who is the chair of Republicans abroad. And I was said, did I stand by it? And I said, yes, absolutely, I did.
And you would argue that the proof of that particular pudding is being served up today.
It's crazy. Look, this deal is a non-starter. This deal has been cooked up between, forget about their advisors, this deal has been cooked up between Trump and Putin. It is a proposal for Ukraine to capitulate. And if I can just say one or two really important things to understand.
Yes, of course.
The 25% of the Donbass, which they are now insisting that Ukraine give up, Russia has been unable to take that in almost 4 years.
Yeah.
Compare that to the Second World War, where in the same period of time, Russia went from the outskirts of Moscow to the outskirts of Berlin. Russia is not being successful here. But the important point, James, about this particular 25% of the Donbass, it is heavily fortified. It is a gateway to Kyiv and to the rest of Ukraine. So combine Ukraine giving that up, which I would suggest they simply cannot. Combine that with demands that their army be cut by a factor of 2.5 is the figure that I have seen, and also that they give up many of their heavy weapons. It's been suggested any of the heavy weapons that America has given them, they simply give up. This is leaving Ukraine a sitting duck until Russia replenishes its forces
and starts
catches
again.
Its breath,
and starts again, because why wouldn't it?
For the rest. It will come back for the rest. Because,
so it looks to me then, and I suspect you're going to agree, it looks to me as if Witkoff has said to, or Trump has said to Putin, or Witkoff has said to the Russian envoy, can you just draw us a little map of what you would agree to?
It sounds very much like that. And my fear is, I mean, I don't believe, and look, this is where, you know, many friends I have in Ukraine, obviously, but I can't speak for them. But this is where I believe Ukraine simply cannot accept this.
When do they have to? When do they have to, Cormac? When do they have to? So if you factor in losses, corruption scandals, lack of US support, and what support they currently enjoy is likely to be reduced or removed if they don't agree to whatever Donald Trump thinks will make him look good in the context of the next news cycle, and damn the future, damn the next month, the next year, the next generation, or the next decade, whatever will make him feel good for the next 24 hours. When all of those planets start aligning, when, or indeed if, does Ukraine have to agree to whatever terms are presented to simply stop the shooting in the short term?
Right. Let me quote two good friends of mine,
Go on.
both ambassadors at the moment.
Yeah.
Alexei Mikheyev, who's Ukraine's man in Berlin at the moment, said to me within the first weeks of the further invasion, we were having a call.
Yeah.
He was under a lot of pressure. He said, Cormac, it's very simple. If Russia stops fighting, there will be no war. If Ukraine stops fighting, there will be no Ukraine.
Yeah.
And another quote that comes to mind from a man who I mean, these are people that I will call friends for life, that I not just worked with. Another man who is currently Kiev's man in South Africa, Alexander Sherba, said to me once, "We will fight on with shovels." This is absolutely existential. Putin has told us that he does not believe Ukraine is a real country. He has already, I would say, and I know we talk about genocide, but I would already put forward, as would Professor Timothy Snyder from Yale University, that actually Russia has passed all 5 tests in the United Nations Convention. Look at Mariupol for one example. The Nazis killed 20,000 in 2 years. The absolute lowest estimate of the number of civilians killed in Mariupol in 7 weeks is 25,000. Some say it could go as high as 100,000. A city the size of Edinburgh deliberately wiped off the map. I have a friend, Sean Pinner, who I made through this, former British soldier who fought in the defence of Mariupol, was captured, tortured, sentenced to death, got out.
And
I speak to this guy every day.
The deal as it is affords impunity to the Russians for anything that's been undertaken up to and including the moment of invasion. The thing I don't know, and you may not know this either, but I'm going to ask you anyway, is that tightening of the vice, because fighting on with shovels notwithstanding, and the courage of the Ukrainian people notwithstanding, there does come a point, there must come a point where all other options have been closed down. The corruption scandal is being cited as part of that vice tightening exercise. The lack of American support, the loss of American support, the failure perhaps of Europe to really step up to the breach, despite making all the right noises, mostly in the right order. Can you not conceive of a moment where whoever is in charge of Ukraine, whether it's Volodymyr Zelensky or not, will have no choice but to roll over because of the American position, not the Russian position? That hasn't changed at all, but the American position is the key one here, and it leaves Ukraine sooner rather than later, perhaps, but definitely eventually with nowhere else to turn, or not.
2 points, James, and let me try and be optimistic as well as realistic.
Okay.
Right. The whole corruption thing is appalling, and it's unfortunate, and it is going to make things difficult. But I think the thing that's important here, ultimately, because Ukraine is a democracy, and ultimately, and I don't know Vladimir Zelensky, it's ordinary Ukrainians and Ukrainian government people I speak to.
But they could run
ultimately,
out.
It's down to the Ukrainian people, and I sense absolutely no will among my friends to give up. That's the first thing. The second thing, which is important to note, is Ukraine is far, far less dependent on American support now than they were in earlier years of the war. It used to be that Ukraine was producing a tiny, tiny amount of their own armaments. They are now producing over 60% of their frontline armaments. Europe has stepped up, not enough.
Okay.
We had Belgium block the 200 billion last month. We're hoping that will go through in December. That now becomes more critical than ever before. Ukraine is developing more and more of its own weapons. But here's the thing. And I spoke to a good friend in Kyiv this morning, and we agreed on this. Here's the thing.
Go on.
The one thing that American provides is intelligence. And that is the one thing America provides that Ukraine or Europe cannot quite replace. This, I predict, is the pressure point that Trump will go for. He has withdrawn military intelligence before for a period of 2 weeks, and it was hugely costly for Ukraine because it cuts out their ability to detect incoming stuff and to target their own outgoing stuff.
So they could, I mean, to be pessimistic then, they could contribute to or create the situation in which Zelensky's options are cut off. But you're absolutely right to remind us that ultimately it comes down to the will of the Ukrainian people, which, has been tested to the nth degree already. Thank you, Cormac. It's always a pleasure. I'm late for the news. I could have listened to you for even longer, but the picture you've drawn is one that the rest of us can now analyse and examine. I'll allow a moment of levity. How ironic How ironic that Donald Trump's administration should be involved in anything that could be accurately described as intelligence. But there we are. Dominic Ellis has your headlines.
Great